My toxic sister wanted to ruin my life, so I ruined her life. My name is Caleb Merrick, I'm 26 years old, and for most of my life, I've quietly survived in the shadow of my older sister, Lana, who's now 29. We've never been especially close, but we weren't openly hostile either. Just two vastly different people raised under the same roof, with wildly different relationships to the truth. I still live at home with our parents, not because I lack ambition or direction, but because I've been trying to save. I have a stable job as a lab technician at a local hospital, the kind of quiet work I enjoy, detailed, routine, and solitary. With rent prices skyrocketing and the housing market being what it is, I figured staying at home a little longer while I built my savings made more sense than rushing out just to struggle. Lana, on the other hand, always needed more. More attention, more drama, more proof that she was doing better than everyone else. When we were kids, she'd find a way to be center stage whether it was her birthday or mine. She was always convinced the world was working against her, and that her family owed her something for that. That pattern only grew stronger as we became adults. She drifted from job to job, always landing in some sales or marketing gig that required her to build a brand, her words, not mine. Her social media was carefully curated to look like a success story. Glossy pictures, motivational quotes, big talk. None of it ever felt grounded in reality. But that was Lana. She recently bought a new car, an Aurelius DX7, I hadn't even heard of the model. Shiny, silver, and ostentatious. She posted pictures of it nearly every day for a week. She even staged a mini launch party for herself, complete with cupcakes and a chalkboard sign that said, "First luxury car, more to come." What bothered me wasn't the car. It wasn't even the showy celebration. It was the way she used it as a prop in her usual narrative, that she was thriving while others, specifically, me, were stuck. At a family dinner not long after, she made some offhand comment like, "I guess some people are just more financially literate," while nodding toward her car keys. Everyone chuckled awkwardly. I didn't respond. I'd learned not to take the bait. But her remarks became more pointed over the next few weeks. "You're still riding the bus? Isn't that exhausting? If you really wanted to move out, you'd have figured it out by now." She never said anything outright cruel, she was too clever for that, but the undertone was always there, "You're falling behind." I'm not. I let it slide. Every time. Until the morning everything changed. It was a Thursday. I'd taken the early shift at work and was up around 6:30 a.m., standing in the kitchen making coffee. I remember the moment clearly, the hum of the fridge, the sound of rain tapping against the window. Peaceful. Then Lana burst into the room like a storm, holding her phone out, yelling something I couldn't understand at first. Her face was red, eyes wild. I stepped back, startled. "You're sick, Caleb. You've gone too far this time." I didn't know what she was talking about. She shoved her phone at me, and I saw the photos. Her car had been vandalized. Long, deep scratches ran across the driver's side door. Sharp, deliberate. The kind of damage that would cost thousands to repair. My first reaction was shock, then confusion, and then, disbelief, as she started accusing me of doing it. "You've always been jealous," she said, her voice rising. "And now this? This is criminal." I tried to get a word in, but she was unraveling too quickly. "You were outside last night. I saw you. I have a photo, from the neighbor's camera." At that moment, our parents came downstairs. Our mom, Marla, still in her robe, looked completely bewildered. My dad, Dean, said nothing at first, just took it all in, his brow furrowed. Lana pulled up the so-called evidence, a grainy, low-resolution image of someone walking past her car sometime after midnight. The figure was hunched, unrecognizable. It could have been a neighbor, a delivery driver, or even her for all anyone knew. But to Lana, it was airtight proof. "I know it's Caleb," she kept saying. "I saw him outside." She didn't. I had been in my room from 9 p.m. on, reading, scrolling through my phone, answering a few work emails. I had no reason to be outside. I said so. My voice was calm, but I felt my hands shaking. Our dad looked at the photo again and said, "It's not clear enough to identify anyone." But Mom hesitated. I could see it on her face, the doubt creeping in. Then she said something I won't forget, "Maybe it's best to just apologize and move on. Even if you didn't do it, is it worth all this tension?" I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Lana just stood there, triumphant. She started crying, saying she'd worked so hard, how much that car meant to her, and how betrayed she felt. I didn't say anything. There was no use. Logic doesn't work on people who are committed to their own version of reality. And things only got worse from there. Later that day, a coworker messaged me, asking if I'd seen Lana's post. I hadn't. I checked, and there it was. A long, dramatic rant about how someone very close to her had intentionally vandalized her car out of jealousy. She never used my name, but everyone knew. The context made it crystal clear. The comments were full of support. You don't deserve this. Some people can't handle your glow-up. Press charges. And then, she did. I found out through a phone call. An officer left a message saying I'd been listed in a report and needed to come in to provide a statement. They weren't treating me like a criminal, but still, I was stunned. My sister had just tried to drag me into legal trouble over something I didn't do. That night, I sat in my room for hours, thinking. Replaying everything. The way she always turned the spotlight onto herself. The subtle digs. The lies. The escalation. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to reason with her or try to convince anyone of my innocence. I was going to prove it. After the accusation, after the social media smear, and after I'd given my statement to the local precinct, I came home with my mind made up. I wasn't going to clear my name by arguing. I was going to use the one thing Lana couldn't twist, evidence. That weekend, while she was away visiting a friend in Westwood, I ordered a set of discreet outdoor security cameras. Nothing flashy. Just small, motion-activated cams with night vision and cloud storage. I spent Saturday morning installing them, one by the front door, one overlooking the driveway, one tucked into the corner gutter with a direct view of Lana's car. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not my coworkers. I wasn't trying to create drama, I was trying to end it. For the next few days, I kept my head down. I went to work, made dinner with my headphones in, and barely responded to Lana's jabs when she was around. I could tell it bothered her. She was used to me reacting, even if it was with silence. Now, I was giving her nothing. But she hadn't let it go. She was still posting vague messages online. Things like, betrayal hits different when it comes from family. Takes a special kind of person to key a car and then play innocent. The comments were full of sympathy. Her friends rallied around her. And from what I heard through our cousin Bryn, Lana had even reached out to a few of my friends, including someone I'd known since middle school, saying she was worried about my mental state. That one got to me. Not the lies, but the implication. Like I was unstable. But I didn't say a word. I just waited. I reviewed the footage every evening. There was nothing unusual for a while, birds, delivery drivers, our neighbor's dog sniffing near the trash bins. Just normal, boring life. Until the fifth night. It was almost midnight when I heard the door creak. I live right above the entryway and the old frame always groans a little. I checked the time, 11:57 p.m. I sat up in bed, already feeling my heartbeat pick up. I waited. No voices. No footsteps upstairs. Just the soft click of the door again, closing. The next morning, Lana was back at it. This time, it wasn't a vague post. She was crying in the kitchen when I came down for breakfast. Our mom was holding her, rubbing her back, while Dad stood nearby, arms folded, silent but clearly uncomfortable. They slashed my tires, she whispered when I entered the room. She looked up at me like she expected me to react, to yell, to protest, to get flustered and defensive. But I didn't. I looked her in the eyes, calm, and said, "We should check the cameras." For the first time, she looked flustered. "The what?" she asked. "I installed cameras after the last incident," I said plainly. "One of them points right at your car." Silence. My mom blinked, surprised. My dad tilted his head slightly. Lana started to speak. "That's illegal, you didn't ask," but Dad cut her off. "It's our property," he said. "He has every right." I walked into the living room, turned on the TV, and mirrored the feed from my phone. Everyone followed, Lana trailing behind, trying to act confused. I pulled up the clip from the night before, fast-forwarding to 11:57 p.m. There, in night vision grayscale, was a hooded figure stepping out the front door, moving quickly across the driveway. The camera caught everything. The person crouched near the driver's side. There was a glint of something sharp. A few seconds later, movement. The tire sagged instantly. They moved to the next one. Same routine. The footage was clear enough to recognize the frame, the posture, even the way the figure moved. When they stood and turned back toward the house, the hoodie slipped slightly. It was Lana. My mom gasped. My dad stepped closer to the screen. I don't know what this is, Lana stammered. That's not me. That's someone else, someone trying to look like me. My dad finally spoke, quiet but firm. Lana, we just watched you do it. The silence after that was the longest I've ever experienced in our home. She shook her head over and over, insisting it had to be fake, that I'd edited it somehow. That I was trying to make her look bad, setting her up. She started pacing, talking fast, her eyes darting between us like she was scrambling for an escape route. You deserved it, she shouted at me suddenly, her face flushing. You sit there acting so innocent all the time, like you're better than everyone. You think you're smart? That you can make me look crazy? You started this, Caleb. I said nothing. Another knock at the door. 2 police officers. They'd arrived in response to Lana's earlier call about the slashed tires. One of them introduced himself and asked for clarification. I didn't respond right away. I simply turned back to the TV and hit play. The officers watched. They didn't say much. Just exchanged a glance after the second tire went flat. When the footage ended, one of them turned to me and asked, "Would you like to press charges for the false report?" Lana gasped. She turned to me, her voice trembling, "Caleb, don't. Please, I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted to teach you a lesson." There it was, her version of an apology. She wasn't sorry. She was scared. My dad looked at her, his face unreadable. My mom just stared at the floor. And me? I simply said, yes. I would. After the footage was shown, and the officers left with statements in hand, our house felt heavy. Like a dam had cracked, and we were all waiting to see how much water would come rushing out. Lana left that evening to stay with a friend, Hadley, I think. The same one she had celebrated the car purchase with a few months earlier. She didn't say goodbye, didn't explain where she was going. She just packed a bag and left. Mom barely spoke the rest of the night. She stood at the sink for what felt like an hour, just staring out the window. She was always the peacekeeper. She thought that if we all just stayed quiet, the drama would fade. Now that silence had collapsed in on her. Dad, on the other hand, was resolute. He said very little, but when I passed him in the hallway later, he paused and put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," he said. "No more pretending." It wasn't much. But coming from him, it felt like the world tilted just a little more back toward center. The following morning, I met with my lawyer, Miriam Locke, a calm, analytical woman who'd been recommended to me by a coworker. I gave her everything, the video footage, screenshots of Lana's social media posts, the neighbor's altered photo she had originally presented as proof, and a few messages from people who'd reached out to me, offering support once the truth came out. Miriam nodded slowly as she reviewed the file. "She's not just wrong," she said. "She's been deliberate. This isn't an emotional outburst, it's a pattern of manipulation." We discussed next steps. A defamation lawsuit would take time, she made that clear, but between the false police report, the social media smearing, and the attempt to sabotage my professional reputation, we had a case. A strong one. She also advised I pursue charges for filing a false report and tampering with evidence, given that Lana had altered the timestamp on the neighbor's footage. People who weaponize the legal system like this, Miriam said, usually don't expect to be held accountable. I agreed to proceed. That same afternoon, a second knock came at our door. This time, it was Lana being served with a court summons. I wasn't home to see her reaction, but Dad told me she stood in stunned silence for several seconds before slamming the door. The fallout started quickly. Lana's online presence, previously polished and active, started to unravel. She deleted the original posts about her car, then made her profiles private. A few days later, a long, carefully written apology appeared on her main account. I want to acknowledge that I've made mistakes. I let my emotions cloud my judgment, and I took actions I regret. I'm learning, growing, and healing. I hope those I've hurt can find it in their hearts to forgive me. There was no mention of me. No ownership. Just vague phrases that danced around responsibility. And still, the comments rolled in. Proud of you for speaking your truth. Real growth is messy. You're so strong. But not everyone bought it. One by one, people who had defended her started sending me messages. A former coworker wrote, "I'm sorry I believed her. She lied to us too." Someone from our church youth group years ago said, "Lana was always good at twisting things. I never realized how much until now." Then Devin Miller, one of her closest friends from college, messaged me directly. We'd never been particularly close, but he was always polite. His message was long and detailed. "I never expected her to go this far," he wrote. "But looking back, she's done this before. Not to this level, but little things. Exaggerating stories. Turning people against each other. She once accused a roommate of stealing a bracelet, only to find it a week later in her own drawer, and never apologized. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I think she needs help, but I also think she needs consequences." I thanked him. But it wasn't just social fallout. The legal fallout was beginning, too. Lana's job, a client relations role at a boutique digital marketing agency, found out about the police report and pending lawsuit. One of her managers apparently followed her on social media. It didn't take long for whispers to start circulating. She was called into HR. Within a week, she was placed on administrative leave pending internal review. That's when she tried to reach out. She sent me a long email, one of those sprawling, desperate messages that feels more like a journal entry than an apology. She talked about pressure, about never feeling good enough, about how she thought everyone was against her. She claimed she didn't want to hurt me, that she thought I would understand what she was going through. She said she was only trying to be heard. But nowhere in that email did she take full responsibility. Nowhere did she say, "I lied." Or, "I tried to destroy your reputation." Just emotion. Deflection. I forwarded the email to Miriam. She read it, then called me. "Don't respond," she said. "This isn't about her feelings. It's about her actions." Meanwhile, at home, things were quieter. For the first time in years, the tension that had become normal was gone. Dad spent more time in the garage again. Mom began volunteering at the library down the road. And I, slowly but surely, started putting pieces of my life back together. At work, things improved. After the incident reached HR, I'd been worried. But once I submitted documentation proving the truth, the police statements, the footage, the timestamps, my manager actually apologized to me. "We want you here," she said. "And I'm sorry you had to go through all that." Even people who'd kept their distance before were warming back up. But just when I thought it might all be settling, it got worse. The forensic analysis of the neighbor's footage came back, the image Lana had used to initially accuse me. The timestamp was manipulated. She'd taken a still from a different night and altered the file before submitting it. That changed everything. Now, she wasn't just being sued. She was under criminal investigation for tampering with evidence. The official court date was set for late October. The leaves had started to change, and there was that early bite in the air, the kind of weather that always made me nostalgic for quiet fall mornings as a kid. But this year, everything felt different. Heavy. The defamation case was moving forward, and now, with evidence tampering on record, the stakes had grown considerably. What had started as a smear campaign was now being treated as a coordinated, malicious act with legal and financial consequences. My attorney, Miriam, told me that Lana could be facing fines, civil penalties, and in the worst case, criminal charges for knowingly submitting doctored evidence to the police. And yet, through all of this, Lana had continued to spin her own version of events. She told anyone who would listen that I had manipulated the footage, that the video was out of context, and that I was trying to ruin her life over a misunderstanding. But those defenses were wearing thin. Most people had seen the video. Some of her old friends, people I barely knew, started messaging me, apologizing for staying silent. One of them, Clint Rowley, wrote something that stuck with me. "I think Lana's convinced herself that she's the victim. She's always done that. But this time she pushed too far, and now she's drowning in the consequences. I'm sorry I didn't speak up earlier. By the time the court date arrived, the house was quiet again. Lana wasn't living with us. After the second investigation began, she moved in with a cousin out of town. Dad didn't reach out to her. Mom did, occasionally, but their conversations were strained. For the first time, my parents weren't on opposite ends of the emotional battlefield. They weren't trying to fix things or sweep it all under the rug. They were just processing. We arrived at the courthouse early. Miriam and I met in the hallway outside the courtroom. She carried a worn leather folder, thick with documentation, copies of Lana's posts, screenshots of her messages, printed stills from the video, and the forensic report on the altered photo. She gave me a nod. We're ready. When Lana entered, she barely looked at me. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked nervous, tired, even, not at all like the polished version of herself she had always curated online. Her attorney, a younger man named Mr. Tollefson, spent most of the morning flipping through his notes, occasionally whispering something in her ear. But I could tell even he wasn't optimistic. The weight of the evidence was simply too much. The judge listened patiently as Miriam presented our side. The footage was shown. The fake neighbor photo was introduced, and the discrepancies identified. The officer who originally took Lana's statement even provided a short deposition, explaining that her behavior had seemed inconsistent with what they eventually found on tape. Then it was her turn. Lana's lawyer argued emotional distress. He said she'd been under immense pressure, that her reaction had been impulsive, not calculated. That she had felt targeted and isolated and was seeking validation in the wrong way. But the judge didn't buy it. He leaned forward, lacing his fingers, and said something I won't forget. Miss Merrick, you didn't just make a false accusation. You manufactured evidence, published defamatory claims online, and initiated legal action based on a lie. That isn't impulsive, that's intentional. Lana didn't cry. She just stared down at the table, her fingers clenched tightly together. In the end, a settlement was offered. I agreed, but only under one condition: Lana had to publicly retract everything. Not vague, not cryptic, a clear, written statement acknowledging what she did, posted from her personal account, without spin or blame shifting. Her lawyer hesitated, but eventually, they agreed. A few days later, the post went up. I want to publicly acknowledge that I falsely accused my brother, Caleb Merrick, of damaging my property. I submitted misleading information and made harmful claims about his character. These actions were unjustified, and I take full responsibility. I regret the pain I caused him and those affected by my decisions. The comments were a mix of shock, disappointment, and silence. A few tried to defend her, most didn't. Some unfollowed her altogether. Her brand, her image, her credibility, all of it collapsed in the space of one post. She had also been fined for filing a false police report and required to reimburse legal fees, including mine. Between that and the damage she caused to her own car, which her insurance refused to cover after discovering the truth, she was in significant debt. When she asked our parents for help, my father said no. You made your choices, he told her. You'll live with them. Mom cried when she found out Lana had been stealing from their shared bank account, small withdrawals over months, totaling more than $3,000. It was a quiet kind of heartbreak. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just resignation. I haven't seen Lana in person since court ended. She sent me one final message. A long one. Part apology, part explanation, part plea. She said she didn't want to lose her family, that she'd been in a bad place, and that she wished things could go back to how they were. I didn't respond. Some things, once broken, can't be returned to what they were. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. And ready to move forward. Life is calmer now. I found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, a modest one-bedroom near the park, with good natural light and a quiet neighbor who waters her plants every morning and gives me baked goods, just because. At work, I've earned back people's trust, not that I ever should have lost it, but still. The rumors are gone. The tension's faded. I've even started training new hires. Mom still calls. We talk about books, old movies, and sometimes, in quieter moments, Lana. I know she misses her. I think a part of her still hopes reconciliation is possible. Maybe, one day. But not now. I've learned something important through all of this, something I think a lot of people learn too late. There is no peace in proving your innocence to people committed to misunderstanding you. The peace comes from knowing the truth, and letting it speak for itself. Lana told a story she wanted everyone to believe. But in the end, the truth told itself. And it told a very different story. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.